Yo, check it.
He's walked through storms, unshaken, unbowed. Through trials and verdicts, still standing proud. A titan in the tempest, against the raging crowd. He's got a vision for the future, gonna shout it loud. Changing the wind, it's coming fast. A new foundation built to last. Cryptocurrency's the key. Make the big switch. Power to the people. Time to teach the rich. Legal battles can't hold him. He's moving on. With plans so bold, from dusk till dawn. He's rewriting the rules. A new dawn's day. From the hands of the few to the people's way.
What is up, everyone? Welcome to the Crazy Cryptonaut channel. I am Zester, and thank you guys so much for joining on this Trump Day. I hope everyone's week has been going particularly well. And so, I'm gonna go through, say hello to everybody. Of course, the narrative, the conversation has changed since Monday or since last week. And we're going to dive into that because there's a lot of, in all honesty, there's just a lot of uncertainty in the global economy. Whether it's cryptocurrency, whether it's the stock market, whether it's precious metals, whether it's just literally put a blindfold on, put all the markets up on a wall and take a dart and just start slinging them. And it does not matter where you land. Currently, there are problems or no problems, but there is absolutely extreme degrees of volatility. And so we're going to jump in and talk about that. But first things first, let's say hello to everybody. What's up, Mile High Trish? Thank you so much for being here. I hear Kukla is particularly busy. And so, guys, take it easy on Trish this evening. Thank you so much for being here. And oh, Trish, actually, the trip and everything in regards to it has turned into, quite the nightmare on account of flights getting off of the island. I did not leave at the same time as my pops did. And so now I am somewhat stuck on the island, but I'm currently trying to figure that one out and see if I'm going to be zooming in to the wedding or whether I'm going to be there in person. But fingers crossed, the airline gets back to me and they have a solution. There it is. Again, Trish, we may have one on Friday. We may not. Right now, everything is currently up in the air, but we will see. I'll let everybody know ahead of time. What's up, D. Flynn? Yes, it is indeed a great day. And so I'm going to go ahead and make an assumption that D. Flynn is excited about what I imagine I'm excited about and many others are excited about. The crypto market stopped taking a dump. And so we have in just the past 24 hours or even less than that, in all honesty, depending on which crypto you look at, on the 24 hours on the 24 hours on XRP, we had a low down at $1.73. We're currently sitting at $2.08, up 15% in the past 24 hours. We can go over to Bitcoin and we can see the same story essentially revealing itself. Matter of fact, look, it's funny how it's always the same time of the day, isn't it? 74,000. We dropped below $75,000 on our Bitcoin, which I didn't think was that unexpected, but it happened. And now everything is absolutely skyrocketing back up. We're still not over where we were 7 days ago, but the markets are particularly happy. Why are the markets happy? The markets are happy, supposedly, because Trump has paused the tariff plan for the vast majority of different nations. That was the catalyzing event. And honestly, if you look at the exact moment that the market in cryptocurrency started to turn around, you would have to draw the conclusion that that was the exact event. Trump saying, never mind, we're going to slow down on the tariffs, resulted in a massive increase in purchasing in the crypto space. Same thing occurred in the stock market. Same thing occurred everywhere. Which doesn't make any sense, but we're going to avoid that conversation for a second and keep saying hello, and then we're going to jump into how it may be able to make sense. But beyond that, we're going to say hello first. But yes, everybody in their crypto that held through is probably feeling a lot better today than they were yesterday. Oh, Mile High Trish, please hit the thumbs up for Zester and support the channel. That is much appreciated. Linda Hearn, what's up, Linda? How are you doing today? Hey, Mary Jones, I woke up singing this song today. Mary Jones, haha, it's happening. It's working. That song does. It's fairly catchy. It's fairly catchy. But thank you so much for being with us, Mary Jones. What's up, PJ and Nana Anna? Hey, what's up, Neil Brooks? Coming in from 59 degrees, Graham, North Carolina. It's a little chilly in my opinion, but it's on the right path. I hope you're doing well, Neil. What's up, June T? And yes, an important one before I continue along is please remember that the content in this podcast is for information and educational purposes and is not intended to provide financial or any other type, whether it be medical, investment, legal advice of any kind. I provide no advice of any professional standard. Please consider everything to be discussed to be entirely my opinion. I don't think I have ever read that one the same way over 100 and some different live streams. But thank you so much, Trish, for making certain that I get that one covered. It is very important. What's up, NM Hiker? Yay, hello, Zester and all. Have missed so many videos. Don't worry, NM Hiker. They're still there and waiting for you. What's up, Campfires and Sunset? Definitely glad to have you back, though, NM Hiker. What's up, Yvonne? What's up, Lori and Bear? Neil Brooks, Zester, I bought my limit on XRP during the slump. I'm done. No more XRP for me. Oh, that's a good feeling, Neil. And that's a good way to take advantage of the price movements. It absolutely is. Dollar cost averaging is when instead of trying to purchase at just a singular time, you go ahead and you just say, hey, I am buying, but I'm only going to buy at certain price points. It's a great way to go about it. And having that structure to your purchases, I think it really bleeds over to the way that you view your crypto portfolio. And so I think that's a great thing, Neil. I'm not going to ask where your limit was, but I have a feeling that everybody that doesn't have one, it's either an all-in type deal or you should have one. Where is that happy point? Is it 100 XRP? Is it 10,000 XRP? It's nice to kind of structure those things, even if they're just set out as goals, because they give you something to strive towards. What's up, LG lady? Hello, LG. You are definitely here. Oh, yes, it is nice, Lori, being able to catch it live. What's up, Captain Spiffy? Welcome, welcome. All right, though. What's up, Texas Farm Girl? Oh, that's a great question, Mary Jones. Where has Gary been? Gary 7 and his dad jokes are definitely missed. What's up, Triumphant? All right, let's jump on over. And of course, guys, remember today I'm going to be ready for questions. We, of course, are going to have also the Whiskey and Wisdom this evening over on the original Mark Z channel, but it's going to be different. And so just be staying tuned to the original Mark Z channel this evening. But I know we're still going to have it. Everything's going to be a little bit off timing because of travel and things of that nature. But definitely looking forward to that one. All right. Let's jump on over to it. As we were looking at earlier, markets have started to recover. So if we wanted to go ahead and kind of pinpoint the exact timing on our crypto market starting to plunge, well, Bitcoin plunges 12% after Trump's tariff announcements, mirroring stock market downturn. And so Bitcoin, everything in the crypto space and the stock market all plunged based off of the tariff announcement. I personally would make a variety of different arguments to state that that doesn't make logical or fundamental sense. But that's what happened. So Bitcoin and the rest of the crypto market plunged to new lows over the weekend in regards to President Trump's reciprocal tariffs. And so this started last week during Freedom Day with the announcement of the tariffs to be placed on both trade partners, allies, enemies, everybody in between. We saw a massive, massive drop. As we had looked at earlier, we saw Bitcoin drop well below 75, actually hitting down 74,773. And then we almost managed to break it today, but we did break it on the 7th. So that would have been on Monday. Bitcoin definitely feeling the pressure. To be completely honest, Bitcoin is still extremely strong. Considering the sell-off that occurred since the tariffs, I think that even the below 75, the 74,700 is still extreme strength coming from the market at this point, especially when you look at a lot of the stock markets around the world, not just the United States and the industries that were affected by it. All of this, in my opinion, is very much temporary. Remember that Donald Trump is currently playing a game with the other countries around the world. He's playing chicken with the train. And the train are the tariffs being imposed. And he's playing chicken with them, with essentially every country around the world, besides those that have already started to make agreements with him. This is temporary, and it's not fundamental. It doesn't make logical sense for cryptocurrency to be suffering on account of tariffs. We don't have any part of our industry that is affected by it, at least not directly. Now, you could argue, and so just to play devil's advocate for why the stock market is having such an issue regarding the tariffs, you can easily play devil's advocate and you could say, hey, John Deere sells tractors to other countries. Okay, those tractors they're typically not even manufactured inside of the United States. But say they were, there would be no reason for you to be in any way worried besides for whatever tariffs the other nation were to impose. Essentially, we're in a very, very weird state where all the companies that are essentially in the United States, and when I say essentially, they are the cultural property of the United States. They were founded, created, developed, invented by Americans. But over the past decades, these companies have moved away from the United States in terms of their manufacturing. There is no logical reason for this to be affecting cryptocurrency. Now, I could see how, logically speaking, Apple is going to have a hard time as they move manufacturing back to the United States. That would make logical sense to see a small dip in regards to the general value of Apple stock. It would make sense. But in cryptocurrency, that is not how it works. You buy Bitcoin globally with your local currency. Your local currency's exchange rate against the US dollar is the price that you purchase at. Same thing with every other cryptocurrency. There's very small disparities across different exchanges that are available to different countries. Very, very small. Most of them too small to even attempt to maybe arbitrage a few dollars out of. But the crypto market itself is in no way tied to the same foreign trade that would be affected by these tariffs. Ultimately, you in the United States own Bitcoin. Someone in India buys and owns Bitcoin. Someone in China buys and owns Bitcoin. Someone in Japan buys and owns Bitcoin. There is no logical reason for the price of Bitcoin to drop because of tariffs that are going to be imposed on manufactured goods. And I don't know if I'm conveying this one properly. I may need to kind of rework the way in which I explain it, but it doesn't make sense. It makes sense why Apple's value or the stock price of Apple would drop on account of these tariffs because there's general uncertainty and concern about Apple products becoming more expensive or less profitable. That is logical. That makes sense. There is zero logic in saying that crypto should follow the same pathway. As a matter of fact, cryptocurrency should be rising in value because the general cost of goods necessary to mine and create cryptocurrency to run the network, the Bitcoin miners, well, complements of these tariffs, the value or price, I should say, of the manufacturing necessities they need, the processors, the electrical components, etc. Those things have risen in value. Complements of the tariffs on a very short term. And so I would hesitate to in any way make a logical declaration about what is going on in our global economy. It is not logical. It doesn't follow any degree of market logic. It is very much, it's very much in the Wild West. And in all honesty, Trump and his move in regards to tariffs is probably the biggest financial news in 100 years. The only time that I could honestly point towards that may have the same effect going forward would be Richard Nixon taking us off of the gold standard. In all honesty, in the past 100 years, I cannot point to any other event that had more of an effect on how markets are going to work. And so I think that we are sitting in very much a time period where everybody, including the talking heads up at the top, are very confused. But Zester, any insight on the Ripple acquisition of Cardano? Haven't had a chance yet to research that. Bobo, everything that's come out about it has been very vague and not confirmed. I am very curious, though. Bobo, it does kind of make sense in certain ways. And so it's something I'm going to be following along with. But right now, everything is unconfirmed. Everything. And so I hesitate to make any statements on it yet just because of that. All right. Hey, very nice, though. Glad to hear that you did get to stock up during the dip. All right. Man, we got some interesting ones going on today. Oh, no, that's an important one. Yeah, Gary does live in Kentucky, and so definitely with the flooding there, thoughts and prayers out for him because need his jokes back. All right, Mark the Silver Shark. Does seem like money that is taking place of dollars or real. money. Everything in terms of the global economy right now, Mark, is in extreme flux. I think some of the funniest ones right now are actually just going through and watching mainstream media when they have a lot of the different financial talking guys on. A lot of those different clips over the past week have been hilarious because there is no such thing as any degree of uniformity. Everybody that gets up there, whether they're jumping on to CNBC or Fox Business or any of the other Forbes or the like, it seems as if they're all just kind of sitting around with, big eyes staring at screens trying to figure out what happened to their reality. And in all honesty, I think one of the biggest problems we have right now is that the people that present us typically with financial news, the people that come on and have in many ways guided Americans and people globally on financial decisions for generations, well, their interests and our interests are not aligned. Why do I say this? Well, I say this because think about everybody who started to complain the second that Trump made the announcement in regards to tariffs. They said, well, look, the stock market is crashing. My 401k is crashing. All of my investments in these different foreign companies are crashing. Well, for the average American, we don't have those. We don't have investments in foreign companies. We don't have massive 401ks. We don't have massive investment portfolios. And so I think that there's also something going on right now where essentially we're being fed bad information because they're looking at the situation from a different light than we are. Many of those that are currently out there that do have large audiences and talk about financial issues, well, they have massive stock portfolios. They have 401ks. They have investments in foreign companies. And so I think that that's kind of altering the conversation. And so we're hearing a lot more worry about the global economy right now than, in all honesty, we should be worried about, because the people that are on the shows that have the platforms, well, it matters to them. When, in all honesty, to most of the average people, it doesn't matter near as much. Not near as much. And I think that it is. It's heavily skewing the conversation on everything tariff related. And it's affecting cryptocurrency. It's affecting the stock market. It's affecting everything right now. Because the people with power, the people with deep pockets, well, these tariffs weren't necessarily good for them. And they have the money to be loud enough for all of us to have to hear about it. And so I do think that we all have to remember that throughout this time period in American history and really the history of the world, is that right now, after Trump's decision last week, we are in a new financial world. Now, Trump's plan to pause the tariffs for 90 days on most all of the countries, that has given us a bit of a break. That's given the world a bit of a break to kind of sit back and maybe start thinking about this more. But ultimately, we can see that the market is remaining extremely simplistic. Tariffs are in. Everybody is concerned about global markets. Tariffs are not going to happen. Everybody is bullish about global markets. It's a disconnection between what genuinely matters. It's mainstream or Main Street and Wall Street. Wall Street wants to hear no tariffs. That's what Wall Street wants. Wall Street wants for other nations to continue to screw the American consumer because they're invested in the companies that are screwing us over. And so it makes perfect sense from their standpoint. And they own all of the networks and all of the news outlets. And so, needless to say, you can't really find any good news at the moment. But it doesn't change the fact that these are not issues that ultimately affect the vast majority of Americans, not in the same way or to the same degree to which it affects those that have the largest platforms. So I'm curious after that one to see some opinions. Everybody is. I think right now, the biggest thing to do is to just not go running around following anyone who's panicking, worrying, saying now's the time for this or whatever. Ultimately, no one knows. We know that this awfully rhymes with a lot of the expectations that we had about a new financial system coming into place, which I'm looking forward to. And so that's the only part that we can really sit there and say, hey, this sounds a lot like the world and environment in terms of the markets that we were expecting. Musical label, will the markets tank with 125% tariffs on China effective immediately? Absolutely, musical lady. They will tank. They will absolutely plummet. It's short term. Is it logical? No. But they will. At least judging by the way they've reacted to every other bit of news, which it doesn't make any sense, but they do it. And so I think that it is. What we're seeing in the markets right now is we're seeing the disconnection between the average, the normal person who's looking at the world and saying there's nothing wrong. And then we're looking at the guys, the elites, who have made insane fortunes over the past decades, who look at the world and say everything is burning. Because for them, the world is burning. They are losing their free money avenues. They're losing their ability to take advantage of the American consumer. They don't like that. They're going to fight for it. They have been made insanely powerful and insanely wealthy on account of the way that this system was structured. Why would they want it to change? Those tariffs were free money for them. You know, they were sitting there and they were charging 10, 20, 50% upcharges essentially on American-made products coming into the country. That was free money. It was free money because somebody wanted to buy an American car. They wanted to have an American product in their nation. They were making free money, and now we've suddenly turned the tables on them. It's a global rebellion of the global elite. And so what we're watching right now is not the average person. We're watching the global elite rebel. And they're rebelling through their outlets, rebelling through their media outlets, even Fox and things of that nature. I don't trust them. Even conservative media outlets are owned by the same elites that were benefiting from the things that were going on. Now they're not. To me, it makes a lot of sense why we're seeing so much hate. What doesn't make sense is how are you supposed to explain this in terms of going back and looking at the way that the elites would have described and said that financial markets worked in the past. This isn't the same. It doesn't make sense, but rich people are scared. Rich people own the vast majority of stocks. Rich people own the vast majority of property. They own the vast majority of the world's debt. They own the vast majority of everything. And so rich people aren't happy. And when you own everything and you're unhappy, you get to make everybody else unhappy too. And I think we're seeing that play out in real time. And so I think it's very, very difficult to go around and point to any metric and say that this is a fundamental shift. Because right now, we are disconnected from fundamentals. We are in a world of fear, panic, and speculation. And that world is not ending anytime soon. It does not appear. And so until we start to actually establish legitimate cycles now with this change in the financial system we're seeing, it's going to be very, very hard to predict where markets are going to go. Craig Davidson, Zester, if we eventually want to earn passive income from XRP, will we have to stake it on an exchange, thus keeping it somewhere unsafe, or are there safer options? Craig, as we move towards the future, especially with XRP, we already can look towards Nexo. And so NEXO, if you live outside of the United States, you can stake your XRP with Nexo for about 10% returns yearly. Ultimately, Craig, there are a variety of different ways to go about staking your crypto. There are safer ways and unsafer ways, or less safe ways, I should say. But you are always, when you stake your crypto or your cryptocurrency of any kind, your digital assets, whatever it may be in the future, you will be placing a certain degree of trust in the entity that you are staking it with. Those could be smart contracts or companies going into the future. It could be nothing more than code. But, Craig, there will always be a slight extra point of failure. But I know from folks that stake on Nexo, and when I got to stake on a variety of the different platforms with my XRP, I never had any issues. Ultimately, Craig, yes, you will be able to earn passive income from your cryptocurrencies going into the future. There will still be a need for you to ensure that you're going with the safer options. One thing I would say, and I know that this seems like a stupid rule, but always remember, the higher the return rate, the higher the risk. And so if I go to stake my cryptocurrency and the platform says that I can earn 50% a year, understand that intrinsically, that means that the risk has increased. If I go and I'm staking into something that's very, very safe, maybe they're providing simple liquidity and they're saying, hey, I'll pay you 5 to 6 or maybe 10% interest yearly. That's what you need to figure out. What are they using your crypto for? And Craig, that's really where it's going to break down to. What are they using your crypto for? Are they making billion-dollar loans to unstable financial firms that may go bankrupt? In which case, I would consider your staked crypto to be particularly in a dangerous spot. Are they utilizing a smart contract that is just identifying disparities between prices and making small percentages on a regular basis? Well, maybe you could have less worry. The short answer, essentially, Craig, is that it will always be important for you to research where you are staking your crypto, but that there are safer options and that it is going to become something that's very important for people to look into and say, hey, do I want to take a riskier option or do I want to take a safer option? You can think about this in the same way as you would look at penny stocks or anything of that nature. You know, it's the same idea as traditional finance. There are unsafe places to put your money, and there are safer places to put your money. And typically in traditional finance, it works that if you're in a less stable, a more risky market, that you would have a higher potential return than if you were staying in a safe market. Look at your treasury bonds, your CDs, etc. Those have lower return rates, but they're considered by the vast majority of financial professionals to be far safer. Hey, what are you welding up, Richard? Glad to have you here. Yeah, Mark, the Silver Shark crypto is acting more like stocks than money at the moment. Absolutely, I agree. And That's Mark. Mark, that's exactly what I'm focused on. And I think that maybe you just said it in a shorter form and in a better way than I did as I continue to discuss this topic this evening. Ultimately, crypto is acting more like stocks than it is money right now. And there is no logical explanation for that. It is essentially a hybrid. And so it is going to be affected by both. But it is acting more like money right now, acting more like a stock, I should say, than it is acting like money at the moment. NM Hiker, tariffs are brilliant, but painful till it shifts. And I agree. And NM Hiker, I had this conversation with Pops back during the campaign. As Trump was running for office 2024 and he was going through and he was talking about his tariff plan, I discussed it with Pops. I said, this is going to hurt. It's going to hurt really, really bad. And for so many Americans and so many people globally, their retirements and their funds are tied up into a lot of different investment vehicles that this is going to hurt. And it was something that we were genuinely worried about then. The logic is sound. The logic is sound. Ultimately, in the long run, Trump is right. The tariffs will slowly, well, honestly, not that slowly, they will fairly rapidly legitimize or equal the playing fields on the global economy. And we need that. We have been playing with one arm tied behind our backs as a country for the past 50, 60, 70, who knows how many years. It's true. So we need it to happen. The global economy ultimately needs it to happen so that they can stand on their own 2 feet. But it does not change the fact that over these months, over however long this takes, there are going to be unintended consequences. And it's primarily going to hit a lot of people that are near retirement age. And so this Trump tariff plan is going to hurt, especially for folks that are near retirement age. Is it necessary? Yes, it's absolutely necessary. Is it fun? Well, those parts of it aren't fun. Watching these countries come back begging to get these things lowered and to actually make a fair deal. Now, that's kind of funny to watch, but seeing and hearing, and I know I've already had conversations with family members last week who are sitting in that same position. They looked at their retirement fund and said, holy shiza, I have lost a lot of money in the past couple of days. And well, needless to say, me being the Trump fanatic and also the major proponent of tariffs, I got a few of those calls from family members and friends saying, hey, you said this was a good thing. And I said, yeah, it is a good thing. And they say, well, it doesn't look like it. And I have to agree with them. It doesn't look like it is a good thing. It doesn't look that way. But it is short term, and understand that the elites are throwing a temper tantrum. If a 3-year-old was running around screaming like an absolute maniac, scrambling, throwing things, destroying the party, trashing your house, what would you say? You'd say, well, it makes sense. They're a 3-year-old. And it's the same idea here. We're trashing the elite's house, and the elites are mad about it. It makes sense. And well, they seem to have the general propensity of a toddler. And so it seems like it actually directly correlates. But that's what's happening. They are panicking. They're freaking out. They're throwing a temper tantrum, and they're screaming at the top of their lungs. And that's why the second that Trump paused the tariffs, we saw massive purchases come in, because I think that they're just literally scavenging to make more dollars. They're jumping onto the bandwagon. But it is. Mary Jones Fox, yep. No, I agree. They sold us out. And Hiker got rid of all of my stocks. Diversity is safest. I definitely agree on diversifying. Absolutely agree. And I'm in the same situation, NM Hiker. I do not participate and will not participate in the modern stock market, at least until we get some legitimacy back to the value of the US dollar. Honestly, as soon as Trump succeeds in getting the financial system back in line and altered into a better form, I'm planning on buying into American companies. I want to own portions of American companies. I love that general idea. I love to think that when somebody in India buys a John Deere, that I make a little bit of money, and that's what we're going back to. And that's why it's so important to bring American companies back to the United States, because when that does occur, it will be true. It will be kind of that old school promise of what the stock market was. Because that's the way it really started. It was a general idea that we would all benefit from the actions of our companies. And we can get back to that with the Trump tariff plan. But, well, your John Deere stock is going to look like crap until John Deere starts to manufacture their tractors in the United States again. Your NVIDIA, they make like processors, very, very important for cryptocurrency and for pretty much every electronic, especially any higher level electronic. They're going to move their manufacturing back to the United States. And Ford, Chevy, I mean, the list goes on and on and on. It's pharmaceutical products, it's automobiles, it's electronics, it's everything. When they move back, none of this would have ever affected them. And so they're going to move back. It's just not going to be fun during the process in between. Yeah, Pam Bondi is going after the chicken cartels for price gouging and collusion with the Dems. Also, D. Flynn, something that I really hope, totally a caveat for a second, but something that I really hope goes on with this push into the chicken companies and their connection to Democratic lawmakers is, what are they putting into our flipping chicken? Because I think that connection, to me, I was far less worried when I heard about the general connection between the chicken companies and the Democratic Party. My first thought was not, they've been screwing me over and they owe me money for all of my chicken purchases. No. My first thought was, what have the Democrats been convincing them to put into my chicken? And so I'm looking forward to a few different answers on that one, Deep Flynn, because I have a feeling that if the Democrats were putting a lot of pressure on the chicken companies, that we may or may not have been consuming chicken that had some new vaccines tested on them throughout the process. Campfires and Sunset. How do you feel about the Tangem wallets? Campfires and Sunset, I've gone through and looked at Tangem wallets. I have not used Tangem. It seems perfectly fine as a soft wallet. I think that everyone just needs to remember that that there is a distinction and a difference. Tangem wallet is your wallet. A hardware wallet is your bank account. This is your bank vault. This is your wallet. Tangem wallets is great at doing this. It's great at it. Use it to do this. If you're planning on spending the money, keep it in a Tangem wallet. No worries. Tangem wallet has some cold storage options also, but ultimately I would recommend that you personally store your cryptocurrency. You do not have to. Go with the free options. They are safe if you take care to an extreme degree of how you utilize them. And at Campfires and Sunset, honestly, when I looked into Tangem, I could not find a single thing wrong. I couldn't find anything wrong with it. It looks like a great wallet service. I just highly recommend that you always keep that thought process in mind, is that one and the other are different. My MetaMask wallet and my Ledger wallet are different. They're both important, and I have both, but they're different, and I use them for different things. MetaMask or Tangem, I would use to make regular purchases. I would use them on a day-to-day basis. A hardware wallet, I may use that once a year. Ultimately, it's long-term storage. And so it's just making that distinction. Same idea. If you buy freeze-dried food, say you buy a bucket of food, you're saving that food for the future. But it's still food. It's the same idea. It's that freeze-dried food. That's your long-term. You go to the grocery store and you buy a head of lettuce. It's your wallet. Sorry, I don't know. I'm making up different little ways of explaining it each time, and I don't know if they're helpful or not. Radagast, hello, Mr. Z. I tried to set a limit order on both Uphold and Coinbase. They refuse to allow more than 900% sell trigger. Is there a fix for this? Yes. Radagast Green, they will not allow you to do that one. And Radagast, it's silly. It really is silly why they won't let it happen. But it's because it created a buttload of extra orders because people were doing exactly that. Radagast, people were going into Uphold or Coinbase and they were going ahead and saying, hey, let me just go ahead and set. I just bought for $1. Let me go ahead and set it for sale for $100, and maybe it'll accidentally trigger, or it'll trigger somehow, or something will happen, and I'll get my win. They had to limit those, Radagast, just because of, honestly, humanity. People were just doing it over and over again. I had some of those set up. I had purchased cryptocurrency in 2017, 2018. I then just literally set it for sale for like crazy amounts more than what I had paid for, and I just walked away. Turns out they didn't appreciate that. And so Radagast Green, if you do want to set an order like that, you can do that through decentralized exchanges. And so if you were to go to something like Uniswap or PancakeSwap, which they work with Ethereum, Solana, I believe now, Bitcoin, the Binance Smart Chain, you can set limit orders at any value, any dollar denomination that you want. And so Radagast, I would say you can do that on decentralized exchanges, but centralized exchanges have started to impose rules on it, which it's silly, but I guess I kind of get why they've done it. I can kind of understand, just because they were storing all this data. I went in and I probably had 10, 20 different limit order price cells that were way, way, way out in terms of prices, and they're having to store the data. And so what they're saying is, we're having to pay to store the data. At some point, we want to keep you somewhere in line. So yeah, that's a silly one, Radagast, in terms of why they do it, but they do it. And the way to get around it is to use the decentralized exchange and set out a smart contract, buy order or sell order at a certain price point, and then the blockchain will execute it. Remember, when you're setting a limit order with Coinbase or Uphold or any centralized exchange, you're telling that company that you will buy at that point. That's what you're literally saying. You're telling the company, hey, Coinbase, I will buy or I will sell at this point. On a decentralized exchange, I am telling the blockchain that I will buy or I will sell at a certain price. And so There's a distinction between the two that seems small and seems negligible, but is fairly important when it comes to questions like that. The blockchain is happy to have that limit order sitting there for the next 10 years until it fills. Coinbase, they don't feel that same way. They want you trading. They want you trading on a daily basis. Coinbase has no incentive to store your money for you in the same way they have an incentive to convince you to spend your money. Remember, they collect fees based off of you trading. They don't want you sitting around with your money not doing anything, at least not until they're allowed to start loaning your money out, which they're not yet. And so when they are allowed to start loaning your money out, I have a feeling at Radagast Green that they will stop having any issue with very, very high limit orders. Oh, Lori Harris would love to see the resurgence of American companies in my lifetime. It's happening. We're watching it. We are watching it happen right now. Yeah, Lori, I want to know what else is in the chicken. That was the first thing I thought when I saw that. I was not worried about any of the money. I was immediately like, no concern. You overcharged me for chicken? That's fine. What you put in the chicken? That was the first thing that came to my mind. I'm like, no. You keep the money. I'm not asking for a refund. I'm asking for an ingredients list. Would you convince them to put in my chicken? Campfires and Sunset. I thought it was a cold wallet. I told my hub to get a ledger, but he didn't. Campfires and Sunset, it's in like that in-between area between being a software wallet and a hardware wallet. Where I worry about it, Campfires, is that it depends on which one you have. And so maybe I need a little more information on your Tangem, because when we do come over here to Tangem, let me actually pull it up, because I know so many folks have asked questions on this service. And so they do. They have both. They have both. And so if you're going with the Tangem hardware wallet, then you have a hardware wallet. You have a hardware wallet. If you're going with just the Tangem online wallet, that's not a hardware wallet. And so that's where it gets kind of confusing when it comes to Tangem. And so I would not be worried, Campfires and Sunset. I think you're good to go. I'm betting y'all have one of the little cards. I do not love that they are connected to telephones, but there is no problem with that. Only thing I would tell you, Campfires and Sunset, knowing that, is that the phone that you have your Tangem wallet hooked up to, please do not go wandering around with your Tangem wallet, hardware wallet, and the phone that it's connected to out and about on a daily basis. There is no worry on having a hardware wallet that is connected to your cell phone. There is no worry. If your hardware wallet and said cell phone both sit inside of a gun safe somewhere around your house all the time, there's zero worry. There's nothing to even think about. There's nothing to be concerned about. The problem is that a lot of folks don't do that. They keep their wallets with them. And so Campfires, I don't think you're worried. Don't go getting the hubby upset, or getting him upset with me, or getting him upset at you. I think that your hubby has got you perfectly set up, Campfires. I think you just have to remember that if you're using a wallet that's connected to a phone, that you need to take one extra little step of thought and process into it. You know, do not keep, unless you do plan on spending it on a daily basis, don't go keeping $100,000 of any cryptocurrency on something that you carry around every day. We don't even have that on like our credit cards and debit cards. Does your debit card allow you to spend $100,000 in a day? Mine doesn't. Not even close. I think they'd be upset with me if they saw $100 come out. They'd be like, did you get robbed? But in all seriousness, just think about it that way, campfires. And so if you're keeping your Tangem wallet in a particularly safe way and you have the hardware wallet version of Tangem, then don't worry about it. Do not worry about it in the slightest. All right. Musical lady, don't worry. It looks way better than if you looked at it yesterday. But you're right. Musical lady, do not. I know. I highly recommend to folks to not over analyze and over worry about their investments in the same way that you wouldn't do that with your stock market, or you shouldn't do that with your stock portfolio. It's the same idea with cryptocurrency. The idea is to buy it and sit it off to the side and wait. Look once a week. Look once a month. If you know the prices are going to be bad, don't look. Just don't even look. At least that's what I do. Musical lady, exactly, Trish. Yep. And this is, I think, a better way. And Mile High Trish, yep, that was a great recommendation for Musical Lady. Mile High Trish says, I watched the price bid on my wallet. Much easier on the nerves. Musical Lady, exactly, Trish. Watch on CoinGecko for the market prices. And yes, it is a lot better to go about it that way, because your brain's not going to do the math and figure out exactly what that means your portfolio is at that date. But you will be able to look at what's going on in the market and have a general idea of if you should do something. Campfires and sunset. The chicken breasts are huge. Growth hormones for sure. Did you know that actually a large portion, well, actually, I don't want to get everybody distracted on that one, but a large portion of the meat that you eat in terms of cheap chicken is actually a tumor. It's because of the most common meat breed, Cornish crosses, are the meat chicken that's utilized by the vast majority of poultry producers in not only the United States, but globally. And I mean, like 99% all come from the same genetics. And those birds are literally sick. They can't live more than 10 weeks. If you let the bird live after 10 weeks, it'll have a heart attack. All right, but yeah, sorry for the distraction there. I have a very, very large interest in healthy food and healthy farming. But triumphant 2024 Zester, we buy on Coinbase and transfer to our Ledger Flex hardware wallet. Any other suggestions? Triumphant? No, that's perfect. Beyond that, triumphant. There really is nothing else to be worried about. Your money is safe. The only thing that I would say, because you have the Ledger Flex, is just to remember that you want to be secure with it. Remember that it does have a battery charge, and so I do recommend turning it off when you place it inside of the safe or etc., just so it's ready to use when you pull it back out. But otherwise, that's essentially the goal that I have for everyone that owns cryptocurrency, is to do exactly that. Buy on a centralized exchange, store on a hardware wallet you own. It's perfect, man. So no, congratulations, triumphant 2024. I'm happy for you, and I'm happy that you just don't have to worry. Like, that's perfect. You have nothing to worry about. Maybe you would consider having a backup plan for your mnemonic phrase. That might be like kind of a last thing to be worried about, just for some kind of insane type event. And so the only thing I would say to even think about is maybe to consider having some other place besides just one where you have that backup phrase. But even then, I mean, you shouldn't have much to worry about. So no. Oh, and I am really proud of us. Think how far we have come. Never thought I would talk about crypto or wallets or gold or silver. No, you're right, NM Hiker. It really is. The entire community should be very proud of themselves, because everybody has come so far. The questions that we have gone through and the things that we started with over a year ago are nowhere close to what we're talking about now in terms of their complexity. And so you're totally right, in Hiker. We need to have a little celebration someday. Everybody has come so far in terms of their knowledge about how this works. And I hope for many that it's made the difference between crypto being terrifying and crypto being just a little concerning. Because it should only be a little concerning. It shouldn't be terrifying. Oh, yes. Mile High Trish. Babe, this group has come a long way, baby. It absolutely has. Bobo, we've been using Ledger wallets last year's Nano S and X to the new Flex and Stacks. If I had to do all over again, I'd go right to the Flex or Stacks. Totally user-friendly, easy to use and see screen. Very, very, very true, Bobo. The Flex and the Stacks are more expensive. And I do think that you have to remember that they are Bluetooth enabled. And so you need to keep that in mind with how you store them or use them. But they are really, really easy to use. It just comes at a higher price tag. But Bobo, I really like the way I have it set up. And so maybe I'm just a creature of habit in that regard, where I like having my simple setup on the computer. But I think you're right. If I were coming into this from the get-go, I would go straight to the Flex or Stacks, and I'd skip kind of the learning early days of crypto. But I still think there's a lot of value in I still think there's a huge amount of value. And you can see it in the fact that I do not own a Flex or Stacks. I think now, maybe looking back on it and having the knowledge I do now, maybe I would jump straight to them. But no, you're totally right, Bobo. If folks out there in the community, if you've been having a hard time with a lot of the small screen and the little intricacies of this little thing, because it's kind of extra, then yes, if you have the money, if you have $100,000 of crypto and you interact with it on a daily basis, $150 hardware wallet's not a big deal. I always go with these, Bobo, to start with, because it's a fairly approachable price point. $60 to have your crypto secured. You don't need to have as much, I feel, to make that cost decision make sense. But no, Campfire and Sunset, I saw too that, yeah, you do have the card version. No, it's the 3-card one. Yeah. No, do not worry then. Yeah, do not worry, Campfires. Just keep in mind, I would not recommend carrying it around. I especially would not recommend carrying it around if anyone in your day-to-day lives know that you have that. But it really is. That's one of those risk factors that everybody has a different metric. You know, I know guys that walk around with $1,000 in their pocket in cash because they've always done it and it's always been the right answer. Well, other people won't walk around with $10 cash in their pocket because they're worried. We all have different risk aversions, in all honesty. I hammer it down to when there is more crypto on the device than the device costs, then you should be buying a more secure device. And so that's where I look at it. I'm like, if I have $1,000 of crypto, then a $60 hardware wallet is not a big deal. A $150 wallet is not a big deal. A $200 crypto wallet is not a big deal if I'm planning on holding these things for the future. James Nixon. I tried to buy XRP the last 3 days, showed my bank account, but would not take the order. A bit more expensive today. You're my only crypto connection. Zester. James, are you using Coinbase? And I would say, James, that's something that is very important. If it is your first time buying cryptocurrency, or even if it's not your first time, is it your bank account's first time? And so what do I mean there? Like, if I go to use a card and I go to swipe that card for the first time and I'm buying crypto with it, the banks are most likely going to deny my purchase. And so what you need to do, James, is you actually need to go to something like Coinbase, set up an account, and then go to make the transfer to Coinbase. And when it is denied, call your bank and tell your bank, this is me, I'm James, and James would like to buy. And they will try to convince you that it's a bad idea, but ultimately they'll let you do it. And so I would say if anybody's gotten to that point where you've set up an account on Coinbase and you're going to deposit money and Coinbase says, no, 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 it's not Coinbase that's saying no, no, no. It's your bank that's saying no, no, no. Because your bank doesn't want you to leave with your money and go to another bank. Coinbase is a bank. Now, when I say this, it is not a bank in the same way that we would commonly think about it. It is the future of banks. But so from a Wells Fargo perspective, and I think maybe this is an important thing for people to think about and about why you get denied so often on making these purchases. Well, Wells Fargo is happy for me to buy products off of Amazon. Amazon is not a bank. Amazon is not storing my money. I am exchanging my money from my Wells Fargo account to Amazon or to whichever of their different providers I'm purchasing from. In that regard, Wells Fargo's happy. They have just collected fees. They have just participated. I'm going to deposit my next paycheck into Wells Fargo. Wells Fargo has no concern. And so Wells Fargo's not concerned that I'm going to buy crap on Amazon. Wells Fargo, when I go and say, hey, I'm going to transfer $500 to Coinbase, what Wells Fargo just heard is that you're cheating on her and that you're leaving her and you're not coming back to her bank and you're going to another bank. And so Wells Fargo is feeling all kinds of a different way about it. Because essentially, when you're moving your money to crypto, banks view it as you moving your money to another bank. It's like you're leaving them. Banks get upset about it. They're very emotional. And so you do have to just remember that in terms of why you do have that come up all the time. From a bank's perspective, they don't want you to go to crypto. They want to, at some point, provide you an option to buy crypto from them. They don't want you to leave. You're leaving, and they don't even know if you're going to come back. And so just remember that one, James, that yes, you do need, and I would recommend for those that are watching and do not plan on buying crypto right now, but plan on buying it in the future, go ahead and set up an account. There is no danger. You'll actually earn free money on Coinbase just for having the account sitting there. So I would recommend you make certain, get your account set up, get your account legitimized, send a few dollars over. And James, after the first time you send money over, your bank will stop denying you. They will stop asking you any more questions. Patty Ann, I do still recommend the Ledger wallet, but I do not genuinely have any problem with any different hardware wallet. I recommend it because I have used it the longest and it's the biggest company. That's the only reason I recommend it. There are other hardware wallets out there. All I care about is that you have it on a hardware wallet. That's it. I'd like for you know, to make it easy for you to have the same one that I have, but ultimately I could care less. I just want your crypto to be safe, and that's it. And I know if it's on a hardware wallet, it's infinitely safer than if it were sitting on any other centralized exchange or any other hardware or software wallet, I should say. So for me, That's just the important one. Whichever one floats your boat, makes you happiest, it's perfect. Lori Harris, what's your opinion on Trezor? I'm going to go ahead. I'm assuming Trezor. I like Trezor. Trezor is the second largest cryptocurrency hardware wallet company out there. Trezor, from everyone I know, I would say Trezor is the second choice to Ledger. If I were going to buy a new brand of hardware wallet, I would probably buy a Trezor. Because of the functionality and connections that it has. And so, yeah, I probably would. Whimsical. Sure, now I hear you say that on Flex or Stacks. I still recommend towards the lower one, but I do see the value. It is a larger screen. It is easier to kind of, click the buttons, work back and forth. I view it as kind of a work up to it thing, but it is an option. I know a lot of people in the community have had those. Whimsical Winders. I still haven't figured out how to have those minimal fees from bank. It's costing me dearly. Are you moving back and forth between Coinbase? Which exchange are you using, Whimsical? Yeah, exactly. How dare we do that? Oh, I realized I just caught up to chat about folks freaking out and worrying about the. Yes, no, do not worry. Pops will be on tonight. He's just going to be on later. I believe 7:45 Eastern Standard Time is going to be the start point, and then we're going to roll straight into Whiskey and Wisdom. Straight into it. And yeah, absolutely, Mary Jones. That's the way the banks really view it. From a bank perspective, they feel like we're cheating on them. Like our banks are like, oh man, you are being so so rude. You leave me, you go to another bank, and because you're literally making the one bank send the money to the other bank. I mean, I don't know. It's a little rude from their perspective. They're looking at us and going like, how could you dare do that to us? Remember when we charged you all those late fees? Like, yeah, it's it's funny in that regard. NM Hiker bank control side, they did it to me too. I called them and said it's my money. That's what you have to do. You literally have to call them. It's the silliest thing. Silliest thing. Hey, Ann, thank you, Zester. Is there a way to not pay the service fee for each transaction on Coinbase? Patty Ann, there is. There's a service known as like Coinbase One, I think. It's like $99 a month, but you no longer pay any fees in any regard. And so no matter how much you trade, no matter how much you exchange, you pay zero fees, but you pay $100 a month in order to participate in the service. And so Patty Ann, they do have that one. That is an option. I would recommend that you do some math on how much you are exchanging and trading each month before you pull that trigger. Just because $99, you would have to be doing about $10,000 a month. Yeah, you would need to be doing over $10,000 a month in exchanges for that to start saving you money. And so if you're making over $10,000 of purchases or trades on a monthly basis in Coinbase, you're probably better off just paying the minimal fee. If you are making more transactions than $10,000 a month, oh yeah, give them their 99 bucks, pocket all the extra money you're saving, 100%. That one just is, there's not but so many people that are making that kind of investment on a monthly basis. All right. Yeah. The 99 a month it really is. To me, that's a very high bar. That's a very, very high bar, in my opinion, to being like, hey, I'm going to give you the 99 and I'm just not going to pay the fees because you just don't know. Maybe 1 month I do exchange more than 10,000 and it saves me some money. But on the average month, I'm not going to. At least not me personally, not through my personal Coinbase account. Company Coinbase accounts, oh, immediately give them their $99 a month. On company accounts, give them their $99 a month and live life easy breezy. But for the average person, for me, it doesn't make sense. I don't buy that much. I wish I did, but I don't buy enough to make it make sense. Gary Green, why has my Coinbase pay amount with section jumped up over 3 times more than my actual cash plus crypto balance? I am not certain, Gary. I am not certain. I mean, cautiously, I'd say that's a very, very good thing. It sounds like you have a lot more money in your account than you thought you did, but I'm not positive. I need a little bit more info on that one. Craig Davison, do you think the alt season they've been talking about since New Year is coming, or recent events changed the landscape? So many YouTubers have been banging on it about it for ages. Craig, yes. Yes. I think that everything has changed in that regard. Something that I would say is that for all those curious about alt season has been a cyclical event. Alt season typically has immediately followed Bitcoin price rises. So Bitcoin on a bullish run. And so remember, we've talked about this one about every 4 years. About every 4 years, Bitcoin has a bullish run. What typically follows that bullish run from Bitcoin is altcoin season. And so a lot of folks, Craig, are continuing to follow the cycle. And so they're saying, well, we had this massive increase to Bitcoin. We then had the Trump presidency, the Trump inauguration, the Trump electoral win, and we had another massive increase to Bitcoin. And they're saying that we haven't seen a lot of small cap cryptocurrencies see the same price increase. Personally, on this one, Greg, I think we did have an altcoin season. I think we already had that. And so I think that from a lot of those YouTubers' perspectives, they're looking at the cycle and they're saying the cycle will repeat. The cycle will repeat. I just have to wait until it does. And they are correct. It will repeat. The altcoin season will come back. I don't think the altcoin season is right now. And so, Craig, I'm personally thinking that we need this year. I think that by the end of this year, we are going to have a solid groundwork to work off of in terms of cryptocurrency into the future. I think that we're going to essentially have that 2025 is going to be the year where we go crypto from 2011 to 2025 was this era of its history. That was its era. And that now we are moving into the new era, and that 2025 is going to essentially be that year. That's going to be that switch point to where we start to move towards a mainstream, traditional, legitimized cryptocurrency market. And so as we move into this, I think we're going to see rules of the market destroyed. We're going to see rules that rhyme, and we're going to be seeing history that repeats. And ultimately, it's going to be navigating through this little time period that I think is probably going to be the most I think that we're at peak. We're at peak uncertainty. We're at peak concern. We're at peak volatility. And we're on our way towards having a legitimate market in terms of it staying fairly concrete going into the future. All right, though. Yeah, D Flynn, Robinhood Gold is $5 a month with no fees. And so on your cryptocurrency, that is another option. I would say D Flynn, and I need to check this again because it's been a little bit of time. Robinhood did tend to have higher prices on the cryptocurrency, but I do not know if that is still true. So I'll have to look into that one, D Flynn. If Robinhood ends up being the big winner, we'll make certain that everybody knows about it. And I like the Robinhood app, so I'd be a big fan, actually, if Robinhood did have everything running perfectly. But what's up, Kukla? And actually, you're here for perfect timing because, Kukla, I think I'm going to go ahead and take a break. I got to go get some water, hit the bathroom, eat a little food before Whiskey and Wisdom starts in just a little while. And so for those that are curious, Pops will be starting at 7:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time over on the original Mark Z. And then somewhere around 8:05, whatever, we will be moving towards Whiskey and Wisdom. We promise there will be whiskey. We do not guarantee that there will be any wisdom. But besides that, guys, love you so much. Thank you for joining, and I will see you again in, well, hopefully about 30 minutes. So see you guys.